Hi, everybody. This is part 3 of our Aliyah story. You could find parts 1 and part 1 and part 2 somewhere. I don't know. I'm going to post them somewhere um, in the comments, in the description. I don't know. You'll find it. Sorry, I'm not so good at social media, but yeah, learning. So basically, in the first two, I talked about why we made Aliyah in the first one. The second one, the kids' transition. Now I want to talk about our transition. My husband and I, you know, professionally and otherwise. So, well, first let me start with linguistically and, friendships and stuff like that. My husband does not speak Hebrew, I do. But even though I speak Hebrew, it's not my mother tongue. And my Hebrew isn't perfect, and we live in a place where it's mostly Israelis. The assumption is that you speak Hebrew. There are a few English speakers, but that's about it. That it's not hard. It's not easy. It's not easy. Even for me, like it's exhausting. Like I think that's something to realize is like the first year, you just need to like know you're going to be tired. It's a lot of like, oh, I got this text. Like what does it say? And like getting on the phone, like I don't know what number to press. Like I don't understand. And like I came here like speaking Hebrew, and I still didn't understand like what they were saying in the menus, and like what number to press. Eventually I did, and at some point, like I was working for, recently, I'll talk about work later, but working for like an institution, and I had to deal with like a contract and stuff like that. And and we bought a house, too, but I, but this, like the contract, I wasn't working with a lawyer who could like explain it to me. Like I just had this contract. And I did ask for help. I asked my, native Israeli friends, like, can anybody read this contract for me, please? And tell me if there's anything I shouldn't sign. And people are always willing to help. So that's like the linguistic transition. We both took Ulpan, but like to really live in Hebrew, I think it just takes a lot of time. It just takes time and effort. And it depends where you are. Like I came with a lot of Hebrew. I still need to make effort, and I still need to give it time to feel like totally comfortable. Socially, when I'm in groups and people are talking in a group, sometimes I don't catch everything people are saying. And sometimes I just say, like, can you repeat that? I don't really understand, and it's okay. Like, I'm in Ola Chadasha. I've been here 2 years. And I think, my husband mostly is friends with people who speak English, or Israelis who speak English, In terms of work, we were very lucky that my husband's work was like translatable in that his industry exists in Israel. And he also was able to keep his job remotely. Thanks to Corona, people lost their fear of remote working. And then he, at some point, switched to a different job that was remote in America, and now he's starting his own thing, also remote in America. For me, it was a little more complex. I did not work in the beginning because I really just had to kind of keep like on top of all the communications, all the Hebrew, WhatsApps and communications, and taking kids to the doctor. Like it's not obvious if you're coming from America how this system works, and it's still not obvious when you need, unusual things. And so I was doing all that, and I also became pregnant and had a baby, and I had a baby with me at home until he was 1. And now he's in like a part-time daycare. So all those things took all of my energy and all of my time. But I'm also a singer-songwriter, and I put out an album while I was here. We just recently put out an EP. and that I'd recorded in America, but just didn't have the time to deal with it until we came here. So now I'm like deep in the music business right now, trying to kind of get my music out to as many people who will listen to it, and I'm performing a bit here as well, and like meeting other musicians. But it took me until very recently to meet other musicians, and I felt like, ugh, I'm not even doing this thing that I say I do. You know, it was frustrating. The other thing with me, my work is a bit complicated because the career that I had in America, aside from singing, was, well, it's connected. I was a cantor in a conservative synagogue, and that doesn't exist in Israel. So there may be people who want to make Aliyah whose careers don't exist in Israel, don't translate. At some point, I realized I actually have skills from my life as a cantor. I don't know if you could hear. I don't know if you could hear, there's a big plane flying over me. Okay. I did manage to actually translate my skills to a different career. I, realized that I'm very, very passionate about the voice. That's not a recent realization. I'm a singer. And I delved deeply into the mechanics of it and to understand it well enough to teach. And I've been teaching voice. I just started recently teaching voice, even teaching some guitar and like basic kind of musicianship to kids. And it's funny because I would never even call myself a guitar teacher ever, but I have what to teach them, and I love it. So I'm doing it like one afternoon, evening a week. I have a whole bunch of students. Then I have a couple other students. I'm able to really like not work too much, to balance it with my family life. I also teach B'nai Mitzvah in America and in Israel, like in America on Zoom. Sometimes people come to Israel to do their B'nai Mitzvah, and I do the ceremony. I teach them over Zoom in America, and then they come and I do their ceremony, and it's beautiful. So I do that as well. I've got 3 students right now. And then we have in our house that we bought a house with a rental unit. And we rent it out as an Airbnb and as like kind of short-term housing, and that also helps. So we're kind of like we've got a bunch of different pots, I guess. And I think that's what I want to say is like when thinking about making a living in Israel, it's very important to be very flexible. Like drop who you were in America and figure out who you are in Israel. In Israel, I'm a voice teacher and a singer-songwriter and an artist, and that's amazing. I love it. So I wish you luck if you're planning Aliyah, if you're thinking about it and wondering about any of these things. I hope that this video helps you. And Lech Lecha.